Hey, well read. I'm very excited to introduce Jeffrey Blount to you today. We had a great interview. We have a great interview in this month's issue, but we're going to dig in a little deeper today. But before we get started, let's just say hello. How are you, Jeffrey?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing just fine. Glad to be with you, Mandy. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And before we dive in, so everybody, I've gotten so many great messages. Everybody is just so excited about your new book coming out, which we're going to
Oh,
talk.
thank you. That's
But I
wonderful.
wanted to say that somebody said, "How did you learn about him? How'd you get connected?" And it was an interview that you did of Susan Zorinda. Yeah, so her,
Yes, that's correct.
yeah, the girl from the Red Rose Motel.
Yes.
So
And a favorite book of mine, and here's my key to the motel.
How cool is that? So she emailed me and she said she was so excited. She loved the interview. And I just wanted to give a little shout out to her because it's so cool when authors, make connections.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I found the literary world as being very, very supportive, and that way. I come from the broadcast news world where it isn't always that supportive. So to walk into this situation where people are being creative in their own way and recognizing the creativity of other people and supporting that as they do their own thing is a wonderful situation to be in.
Well, you're really supportive of other authors. You really do go above
Yes,
and beyond.
because I believe we have a great service to provide. Novels, people consider novels as to be, like a beach read, something fun to do, but don't take it very seriously. They think of nonfiction books as the books that, are heavy, that mean something. And not that a book has to be heavy, but novels are known to create empathy within readers. And novels have been known to change our world in ways we don't think about. There was a book called The Jungle that came out, and it was about the meatpacking industry, and it was in the early 20th century. But that book, that novel, raised so much ire within the public that eventually it led to the president and Congress creating new laws. And that book was the beginning of what we now call the Food and Drug Administration. That's how powerful books can be. It changed the legislative direction of the world. So that's one of the reasons why, I found that I had this writing talent, and I understood the power of literature to change things. And that's why I wanted to write.
Oh, I love it. That was a question that I had, was how you went from the work that you did before, where very important, powerful work, to writing fiction. But you just answered
Well,
it.
I there's a little more in that. I have been writing all my life. The first the first novel I read by myself was Old Yeller, and followed that up with Savage Sam. And I was hooked. And my parents, wanted my brothers and I to read, and so I just began reading. And I think when you fall in love with writing, and then at least for me and many other writers, you get to the point where you want to try to create some of that magic on your own. And you feel like, well, I'm going to try my hand writing this short story to see if I can create. I have these feelings, I have these things I want to talk about, like this writer's talking about. Why can't I do it? And so it started all the way back then. Becoming a good reader turned into becoming a good writer.
Oh, it was
And I
Charlotte's
just kept
Web.
doing it. Yeah, I kept doing it through, there are things that I was doing while I was working in the news business. Um, you know, I wrote some op-ed pieces, and I was writing some, mini documentaries for museums and things like that. But I always had fiction in the back of my mind, and I knew that I would be getting back to it.
I love it. I love it because, words are powerful. Words
Yes,
are.
they
And when
are.
you're writing fiction, you do have the power to make the world that you want. You can make that ending be the way you want it to be. Um,
Exactly right. Margaret Atwood said, "A word after a word after a word is power." And when you recognize that, and you recognize that because you're writing in a genre that that we know scientifically, we know helps to create empathy in people, you know, you really recognize that you have a tool to make a difference in the world, and literature does make a difference.
Well, let's talk about Mr. Jimmy Around the Way.
Okay.
And so, I can't wait to read it. I'm just going to be completely honest. I wasn't smart enough to ask for an advance copy, right? You know, so because I thought, oh, you know, but it doesn't matter. I've read so many great endorsements for it, right? I feel like,
Yes.
I've watched you've done so many great interviews.
Oh, thank you.
And so I can't wait. I already feel like I know. I already feel like I know these characters. But so it's a very powerful story. Do you want to tell a little bit about it without giving away?
Yes, I can tell you that it is about an African-American billionaire who is well known for his philanthropy and well known for his business acumen, and is on television and in the newspaper all the time. So he's a friend of the president. So he's you know, he's out there in the public eye. Well, what happens when you're that much in the public eye and you falter, it becomes a big deal. So he has quite a tremendous fall from grace, and he breaks his family, he breaks his business, his everything, and he attempts to get away from it. You know, like when you're a kid and you do something wrong or somebody hurts you, what do? You run into your bedroom and close your door, because that's where your comfort zone is. His comfort zone was being raised in the South, in the rural South. And he wanted to get back to that. And he found this little town called Ham, Mississippi. He felt like it was so far away from everything that maybe even social media couldn't find him. He buys this house and ends up adjacent to a neighborhood that is mired in abject poverty, the kind of poverty we don't really believe or understand exists in the United States of America. He doesn't really want to deal with it because he's got his own issues to deal with, but he gets drawn into the community. And the story follows his attempt to find some redemption, but also his attempt to show these people in this community that they have worth, and to help the community survive when a really disturbing discovery happens in the book.
Wow. Oh, so one
it's
of the
about
questions,
helping your fellow human being.
I can't wait. And so one of the fun questions I asked you was, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Yes.
And you said kindness.
Yes, because I look at my literary work as a part of the activism of kindness. You know, I was raised, as I said, I was on a small farm in rural Virginia, and my parents practiced the activism of kindness, and my brothers and I were raised up in it. So it's a part of us. So, for instance, my father would grow an extra large, or plant a huge garden every year. Although, you know, we planted corn and peanuts and those kinds of things, but he planted this monster garden that we could never use in a season. And as a little kid, I would wonder what that was all about. And then we would go to church. And then after church, people would be coming to the house and they go out into the garden. And I'd say to my father, you know, there are these people, I don't even know who those people are. They're in our garden picking our food. And he would say, that's what they're supposed to do. Let them pick whatever they need. And I realized that they had done this purposely to help feed the community. And little by little, effort after effort, kindness after kindness, we absorbed that. And I have tried to live my life based on that guidance from my parents. And Mr. Jimmy starts off, in the prologue starts off with him in a situation where he's required to look back and pull on the teachings from his family to help someone in need, which sets the book in motion.
So I know this is fiction, but
Yes.
is there some of your past? I mean, I know you draw from, you, like you just said. Did you put any of your actual history, your true story, some memories into this novel?
I didn't in this novel. This novel really is a complete creation in that sense. There are things that if you grew up with me, or you were in my family or extended family, you might recognize, that might make you smile and might make you laugh. There are tributes to my earlier works of fiction in the way and phrases that will occur in this book. So if you have read my two novellas and then my debut novel, The Emancipation of Evan Wolves, you will find tributes to each book in the other book. But this one, I really, I'm outside of it, and I had to do a lot of research, except for the fact that because I was in a rural area, I was aware of rural poverty, but I wasn't aware of it in this sense and in this depth, that there could be this kind of poverty in our country. You know, when I was a kid, I would see all these ads on television about, you know, give $5, feed some kid in a developing country. But my wife and I just saw one of those ads for the United States of America. And, you know, and that's one of the reasons I wrote Mr. Jimmy, to make people aware of what their fellow human beings were going through, and hopefully to have a more empathetic heart in regard to that.
I love it. You also, in the interview, you talked about, you thought it was time for an us generation.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. And what I try to do with Mr. Jimmy is to have us recognize that it does take a village. And, you know, you see a lot of things, I see a lot of things online, and these are not negatives, but it's an example of what I'm saying. You know, you will see an ad on Instagram or Facebook for somebody, for a masterclass on how to be your best self and how to take care of yourself and how to make sure that people don't harm your emotional well-being and all of that. I'm waiting for one that says, here's a way for all of us to help each other. And I think, you know, there was a me generation that came in the 80s, and I think we still are carrying that a lot. And I think we should be taking care of ourselves first, because, you know, it's like you sit on the airplane, they tell you to put on the mask yourself before you can help the person next to you. So you do have to take care of yourself before you can reach out. But I think a lot of us get comfortable with where we are and forget that part of our, at least in my mind, part of our reason for being here is to provide service for our fellow human being. You know, Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. And so that's what I'm trying to talk about when I'm talking about an us generation, or the village, what it looks like, who belongs in it, and the fact that we all have to really care about each other and bring each other up.
That's true. When in a therapy session years ago, my therapist said, Mandy, you're just going to keep getting your heart broken if you expect people to feel like you feel. And I thought, I don't expect people to feel like I feel, but I don't want to change who I am to be like that.
Right.
Selfish, kind of like this, what you're just talking about. And I was like, that
Right.
just, it stuck with me. All these years later, I think about it, and it's like, you know, I don't know. When I read that, I thought, this is, yes, this is what we need.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, there's a way to be yourself and to still be kind and to be reaching out to everybody else, to not have to it doesn't diminish you to help people. And in fact, the times that I have maybe, you know, outside of my getting married and my two children being born, the times that are most important, that have touched me the most, have been the times when I have helped other people and their reaction that have come to me. When I left NBC News, they printed up these two posters of me that were in the control room, and they took them around the office so people could sign them and say goodbye to me. People talked about, you know, the shows that we worked on and how great that was, and, you know, just being a good colleague and all that. And so there were a lot of things about the work. But the one thing that still stands with me, and sometimes it just comes to me out of the blue, I don't know, I'll just be walking around and it'll come to me and make me smile. Sorry about that. And that is the person who said, thank you for teaching me how to be a good human being. And so you can still be yourself and be strong within yourself, but and still reach out and help people. And I think that's so important. And that's what Mr. Jimmy's going through. You know, he's trying to find his redemption. He's trying to find strength within himself. And he's beginning to realize that a lot of that strength is in helping these people in that community.
And it can be little things. It doesn't have to cost money.
Absolutely.
If you don't,
Absolutely.
it can just be your time.
Yes, it can be your time. And the thing is when I think of the activism of kindness, we talk about, moments of kindness, random moments of kindness. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making kindness part of your DNA so that at every moment possible that you can do that, you can do that. And, you could go into a coffee shop and you see these people working and they're working and you just say their name. They got their name tag on. You just say thank you by their name. Sometimes people stop and they look surprised. Oh my goodness, you did that? And they smile because it's just a little moment. And that's not going to change the world, I know. But when we get in the habit of being kind and creating kindness, a penny makes a dollar. So if you keep adding, you keep changing. And if each of us can make a huge difference in our lifetime, in the life of 10 people, that's doing something.
It is. It's a big shift.
It is.
And,
yeah.
Let's say, gosh, I could just talk to you about that over like all let's talk about your other. So you have 4 novels. So Almost Snow White, Hating Heidi Foster, Emancipation of Evan Walls, and Mr. Jimmy Around the Way.
That's correct.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your previous works?
Sure, I can. Yeah. Well, I want to say that Hating Heidi Foster is a YA novella, so it's for young folks. That book was created because I saw a special moment between my daughter and her oldest friend together in their senior year of high school. And I knew I needed to write a book about friendship so that they could carry that book with them through when they move from apartment to apartment. Every time you pack it up or unpack it, you pick out that book and you remember each other and what you meant to each other. And I kind of felt like, well, they'll graduate. I knew they were going to be in separate parts of the country and they'll fall away from each other. Like when I have one really good friend from high school, but I forget they have social media, so they've never lost touch. Almost Snow White was the result of listening to a conversation between my father and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and they were talking about African Americans in the early part of the 20th century who attempted to or passed for white. And the discussion they had was what would happen if that failed, and if you couldn't come home because you'd already turned your back on your own people and you've been thrown out here, what happens to that individual? And so that became a story for that. And the Emancipation of Evan Walls came from reading an article about African American kids who are brilliant and who are intellectually inclined and who suffer for that from all parts of the community who don't see that as positive. So you can see there's an arc here of trying to bring hope in situations, or an arc into trying to educate about people's situations and why people do the things they do and the help they need. So each book is attempting to guide readers from my point of view into thinking about a particular issue and ways to deal with that issue.
I love it. Well, so when does Mr. Jimmy from Around the Way? It's the 16th of this month?
It's the 16th that comes out, yeah, of this
so
month.
Do you
I'm so looking forward to it.
Oh, I bet. Do you have some events that you'd like to invite people to? Do you have anything coming up?
Yes, I would say if you can go, because there are so many, if you could go to www.jeffreyblount.com, there on my events tab, you will find many of the events that I'm going to be going. I'll be all over the country. I'll be down south. I'll be out west. I'll be in the middle part of the country. I'll be up north. So I'm getting around.
Oh, wow. Are you going to be in Alabama? Anywhere in Alabama?
I am going to be in Alabama. I don't exactly know the city right now, but I can tell you that I am going to be in Alabama. Yes.
All right, because that's where I'm at now. So I'm
Okay.
going to go to your website and check that out.
Okay.
It's so exciting. to follow you. It's when Susan, when I got the
Yes.
interview, to for Well Read, which I was so excited. When I saw you, and I thought, I hadn't read your stuff yet, but I'd been seeing your name,
Yeah.
where like how you're so supportive of other authors. And it's just like, I thought, I really want to meet this guy. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Well,
and Mr. Jimmy from around the way appreciates it too.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess, are there any last words that you would like to tell the readers?
I just hope that you will love it. And I want to tell you that we've been talking about some very serious issues in the book, but I want to tell you there's also a lot of laughter. There's also a lot of love, and there's a tremendous amount of hope in this book. In fact, if I can read to you from the top of the book, this is a blurb by Cassandra King, who says, "This tender story is for any of us who have fallen and found the only way up is by reaching out a hand to others." And sometimes a plan comes together. I've already had one review from one reader who said, this book makes you want to go out and do something good for people. So, that's what I'd like to say as I leave.
And that's perfect. And we need it. I cannot wait to read my copy, and I can't wait to talk to readers once it comes out. Maybe we can get back together. That would be fun.
Mandy, that would be great. That would be great.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. And good luck on all the events.